An eccentric philosophy professor gives a one-question final exam after the semester. The class is already seated and ready to go when the professor picks up his chair, plops it on his desk, and writes on the board, "Using everything we have learned this semester, prove that this chair does not exist." Immediately, fingers fly, erasers erase, and notebooks fill in furious fashion. The students scribble furiously, attempting to refute the existence of the chair using every tool and theory they had learned. One student, however, stands out. He is finished in less than a minute. His classmates glance at him in disbelief as he calmly turns in his paper and exits the room. The tension in the room thickens as the rest of the students continue their frantic writing, each one wondering if they had missed something obvious. Weeks later, when the grades are posted, the rest of the class is astonished. The student who had barely written anything at all receives an A. Puzzled, they gather around to see what he had written. His answer consists of only 2 words. What chair? A 67-year-old man and his grandson were riding on a bus, heading downtown to go to the movies, when a young punk girl got on. She had spiked, multicolored hair that was green, purple, and orange. Her clothes were a tattered mix of leather and rags. Her legs were bare, and she was wearing worn-out shoes. Her entire face and body were riddled with pierced jewelry. She sat down in the only vacant seat that was directly across from the man. The man raised an eyebrow and stared at the girl. Finally, the girl got self-conscious and barked, "What are you looking at, you old fart? Didn't you ever do anything wild when you were young?" Without missing a beat, the man replied, "Yeah, back when I was in the Navy, I got really drunk one night in Singapore and slept with a parrot. I thought maybe you were my daughter." A guy lands a new job, and his boss offers him a deal. "If you marry my daughter, I'll make you a partner, give you an expense account, a Mercedes, and $1 million salary." Curious, the guy asks, "What's wrong with her?" The boss shows him a photo, and she's extremely unattractive. The boss adds, "Not just ugly, she's also as dumb as a rock." The guy replies, "No thanks, no matter what you offer." The boss ups the ante. "How about a $5 million salary and a mansion on Long Island?" The guy thinks it over and decides to accept, figuring he can always put a bag over her head when he sleeps with her. A year later, he's hanging an original Van Gogh painting that he bought with his newly acquired wealth. Climbing a ladder, he calls to his wife, "Bring me a hammer." She mutters, "Get the hammer, get the hammer," and fetches a hammer. Next he says, "Get me some nails." She mumbles, "Get the nails, and brings him some nails. After realizing the nail won't hold the painting, he calls out, "I think I'll need a screw." His wife mutters, "Get the bag, get the bag." A French, a German, and an Italian spy are captured one day. The captors grab the French spy, take him to the next room, and tie his hands behind a chair. They then proceed to torture him for 2 hours before he finally cracks, answers all questions, and gives up all of his secrets. The captors then grab the German spy. They tie his hands behind the chair in the next room too, and torture him for 4 hours before he finally cracks and tells them what they want to know. They then grabbed the Italian spy. Once again, they tie his hands behind the chair and begin torturing. Hours go by, and the spy isn't talking. Then 8 hours, then 16, and after 24 hours, they give up and throw him back into the cell. The German and French spy are impressed and ask him how he managed to not talk. The Italian spy says, "I wanted to, but I couldn't move my hands." 3 biker buddies are sitting in a bar. A man, who's already heavily intoxicated, walks in, sits down, and orders a drink. The man looks around and sees the 3 bikers sitting at a table in a corner of the bar. He gets up, staggers over to their table, and leans over it. Looking the biggest of the 3 men in the eye, the drunk man says, I went by your grandma's house and saw her completely naked through the window. Man, she's fine. The biker looks at the drunk man and doesn't say anything. His buddies look confused because people have had their faces kicked in for saying less than that to him in the past. Leaning against the table once more, the drunk man says, I slept with your grandma too. She's the best I ever had. Still no response is received from the biker. However, his buddies are now starting to get angry. The drunk man continues, I'll tell you something else too. Your grandma loved it. Finally, the biker stands up and says, You're drunk. Damn it, Grandpa, go home. There was a woman who had 100 kids. She named each of them after numbers in the order they were born. There was a fire, and all of them died except 90. 90 went off to have kids of her own. They were very kind and loving. One day, they found an injured dog. They took it home and nursed it back to health. They hid the dog and never told their mother, afraid she would kick the dog out. In fact, they never told anyone. To keep from arousing any suspicions, they named the dog This, so the name could be used in conversation. One day, This ran away. They never saw This again. No one else knew about This. No one even knew a dog named This existed. Only 90s kids will remember this. An 80-year-old man was out fishing. He was sitting in his boat when he heard a voice say, Pick me up. He looked around and couldn't see anyone. He thought he was dreaming when he heard the voice again say, Pick me up. He looked in the water and there, floating on the top, was a frog. The man said, Are you talking to me? The frog responded, Yes, I'm talking to you. Pick me up, then kiss me, and I'll turn into the most beautiful woman you have ever seen. I'll make sure that all your friends are envious and jealous because I will be your bride. The man looked at the frog for a short time, reached over, picked it up carefully, and placed it in his front pocket. The frog said, What? Are you nuts? Didn't you hear what I said? I said kiss me, and I will be your beautiful bride. The man opened his pocket, looked at the frog and said, Nah, at my age, I'd rather have a talking frog. A blonde walks into a bar looking frustrated. The bartender asks her, What's the matter? The blonde replies, Well, I've got these two horses and I can't tell them apart. I don't know if I'm mixing up riding times or even feeding them the right foods. The bartender suggests, Why don't you try shaving the tail of one of the horses? The blonde says, That sounds like a good idea. I think I'll try it. A few months later, she returns to the bar in worse condition. I shaved the tail of one of the horses, but it grew back, and I can't tell them apart again. The bartender says, Why don't you try shaving the mane? A few months later, the blonde is back. I shaved the mane of one of the horses, but it grew back. The bartender yells, Just measure the damn horses. Perhaps one is slightly taller than the other one. The blonde stormed out of the bar. The next day, the blonde runs into the bar. It worked, she exclaims. I measured the horses, and the black one is 2 inches taller than the white one. My friends, if you want to watch other funny jokes, subscribe to the channel.